Alright, I just wanted to make a quick little video about Stadium Genji's build. I've been playing this game for a really long time. At one point, I was pretty darn good at it, and recently I've been getting into Stadium, and I've been trying out a lot of stuff. I've been looking on the internet, seeing what other people are doing, paying attention to what people are building in my games, and I wanted to make a character guide for Genji, the coolest character in this game by a long shot. I know a lot of you guys want to go into Stadium and absolutely dominate on Genji, and this is the build that you need to use to do that. So I'm just going to go through pretty much every phase of the game and what you're going to want to be building. I'll talk about some situational stuff as well, and I'll also just give my general opinions on the characters' other items and abilities that they can take outside of the build as well. So first I'm going to kind of have to explain my opinion on the Stadium metagame. Right now there are three characters especially that I think really are broken in Stadium. That'd be Junker Queen, Cassidy, and Juno. And in my opinion, the reason that these characters are so good is that they just build very simple things. Like they have a very simple game plan and they get very strong very quickly. Even on round one, these characters are insanely good, you know? They can just build weapon power, ability power, really whatever they want, and they're very strong in Stadium. There's also characters like Zarya that are about as good as Genji, but still a huge issue for Genji. And the biggest thing I think that this build really abuses to be so good is Hidden Blade combined with Siphon Gloves. Now I'm just going to demonstrate Hidden Blade really quickly. If I go over here, I change this character to a character like Cassidy. Keep in mind, this guy will have less HP than a Stadium Cassidy, so this is not a one-to-one representation of what it will look like in game. But it's very easy to get the frag, and I didn't even do it with the melee. That was a bad example. Let me redo that. As you can see, I can one-shot combo Cassidy with this build, and I don't even have any weapon damage so far. So the next thing we're going to get is Siphon Gloves, which is actually going to allow us to heal an enormous amount of damage with just our quick melee. And these two items make up the core idea for the round one strategy. So I'm just going to let these bots take me below 200 HP really quickly. I'm going to show you how broken this is. I meleeed a single time, and I got about 64 HP back. I think that's what my math came out to whenever I crunched the numbers earlier. But Genji is a character that's going to be playing very close to the opponent and meleeing a lot. So whenever you're playing Genji, you're going to be doing a lot of stuff like this, getting those quick melees. So you're going to be very bulky with not only the lifesteal from this, but also Siphon Gloves as well. Now, you have a few options here for the rest of your initial build. The first thing that I like to do, this is what I run almost every single game, and really quickly, let me just show you guys. That's the wrong tab. I'm going to go to my Stadium season on this account. I've played 18 games and I have a 94% win rate on Genji. So this is what I personally do every single game, is I go Compensator Plasma Converter, and this is my round one. This is a very strong combination. I think this is just kind of a no-brainer. You're just buffing up your weapon, you're getting a little bit of lifesteal on top of the sustain that you already have. You're just going to be very strong, able to just dash around and annihilate the enemy backline with, the enhanced melee damage, the survivability, and just, obviously the stronger weapon power as well. Now you do have other options, right? If you're playing versus a team that doesn't have beam heroes, you're playing versus like Ashe Soldier, and then their tank is a diva or something, and they have Mercy Juno. You're just never going to die to those players with this build if you use it properly. So something like Frenzy Amplifier can be really good, because after you get in a limb, you move so quickly, and you can just run around and just annihilate the enemy team with Frenzy Amplifier. It's very strong, but I personally like to stick to these two for the consistency. The only other option that you really have would be Armored Vest, but I've never bought this in game. The only other one I've tried is Frenzy Amplifier. But on paper, 25 extra armor on the first round could be very useful. So this is our round one build. Now I'm going to talk about kind of the concept of playing Stadium and getting as ahead as possible. So at the end of round one, there's a few options for things that you're going to want to buy. You're going to want to buy both of these items at some point in the build, regardless of the situation, but there are two things you have to consider. The first one is you're really ahead and you need more sustain. The second situation is you're really ahead and you just want to do more damage. And then there's also the possibility of you playing from behind. So the first step is to sell these, regardless of the situation. You have a billion money, I don't care. Sell these, and what you're going to do, if you can afford Eye of the Spider, go ahead and buy it. And the other alternative is going to be Phantasmic Flux. Now, the situation you take Phantasmic Flux, is kind of weird because you're either going to be behind or way, way, way too ahead for it to even matter. And essentially what I'm meaning by this is a really broken item that's going to increase your damage like around the board by 10% and give you 15% lifesteal on all the damage that you deal, as well as the ability to get overhealth. This is incredibly strong. So on round 2, if you can buy something like this is a pretty average round 2 buy if you cannot get Eye of the Spider, right? This costs 10k, this costs 1500. Eye of the Spider is more expensive than both of these combined, but this is still fine. If you can buy Eye of the Spider, go ahead and buy it. But recently I've been mostly relying on Phantasmic Flux plus Compensator or Phantasmic Flux plus Icy Coolant. These combined together actually cost more than Eye of the Spider, but if you are this fed, if you are fed enough on round 3 where you can sell all the unnecessary round 1 stuff and buy these two, or even better, these two, you are going to be insanely unstoppable. This obviously is going to allow you to deal more damage, but I'm telling you, you will never die with 2 items like this, plus your melee regeneration. Like, it's impossible to die, genuinely. Like, if you die with these items, you misplayed egregiously, or you're going into a really bad composition, right? Obviously that's a possibility. Your team's behind. You know, I'm being a bit dramatic, but you know, Phantasmic Flux is incredibly good on round 2. This is a very, very standard round 2 build. Whether you're ahead, whether you're behind, I think this is possible on round 2. Going into round 3, right, like, I'm just going to go from this point. I've already explained that Eye of the Spider is very, very good, but you're going to be getting access to another power. It's always going to be Hashimoto's Bane, and the reason this is because Hashimoto's Bane fires 2 extra shurikens that each do 50% of the normal shuriken damage. So you can think of that as throwing 1 extra full damage shuriken, and the cool thing about these is that they auto-aim, right? So if this indicator is on your screen, this means that the ability effect is active. I don't really know how to phrase that, but yeah. You're just going to be doing an extra shuriken's worth of damage. Makes it very easy to just run around the map and just very quickly, without thinking, flick around. Like, you don't even really have to aim to get these kills. It is insanely broken, right? And keep in mind, I only have 15% weapon damage increase when I'm doing these combos. So, like, this is also round 3, so we're going to be able to shop again. So we're going to sell Compensator. We already have a purple. We already have our Siphon Gloves. If you can buy Eye of the Spider, go for Eye of the Spider. Talon Modification Module is also very, very good. In some situations versus teams that know what they're doing, and this has only happened to me one time. I've played 18 games this season. Each game is like 25 minutes long. This has happened to me one single time playing this game, is the enemy team as a whole built armor for me on round 1 because they know that Genji is OP, right? First people that actually respected it, they were terrified of me. They played versus me the game before, they all built armor. Codebreaker is insanely good to get. Codebreaker versus people who are trying to counter you by building armor is absolutely broken. But I'm just going to go for Eye of the Spider right now for round 3. If you can get to this point, that's great. Sometimes your build's going to look like this on round 3. Sometimes your build is going to look like this on round 3. You know, there's a lot of different routes you can take, but essentially, like on round 3, if you're getting really, really fed, 2,500 is very doable by round 3. You can get to this point. And if you have extra money, you probably aren't going to have enough money to get a rare, but if you do, obviously Icy Coolant, Talon Modification Module, those are my 2 favorite rares on Genji. I think some of these other ones have situational uses, but I only really ever look at these 2. They're both very good. Frenzy Amplifier is another thing to fill out your build. You can get these 2 to fill out your build. Really just buy as much as you possibly can. You're going to be looking for weapon damage. This gives you some utility with cooldown reduction as well as weapon damage. Frenzy Amplifier is very, very good. I think at this phase of the game where you can really get those chain kills going, this is very strong. Frenzy Amplifier is stronger at this point than it is at round 1, genuinely. I mean that. So going into this point, you know, round 3 build, you're going into round 4. What's the next thing you buy? Codebreaker every single time. Situationally, you can take Volskaya Ordnance. You can go ahead and read that if you want. I'll point you in the right direction, but I really do vouch by just going Codebreaker. It gives you weapon power, which Volskaya Ordnance does not, and 50% of armor's damage being reduced is pretty good. I butchered that sentence. Let me rephrase that. Just read it. Ignore 50% of armor's damage reduction. That's very good. That's very good. Nothing else to say. Now we're going to be going into the next round where we actually get to unlock another power. This is a good time to talk about Iaido Strike and how Iaido Strike works. Pull out your blade and you swing it. That's very simple, right? But it's actually pretty bad. I'm not going to lie. I think Iaido Strike is very, very bad if you use it improperly. And there is a tech that you can do that makes Iaido Strike very, very strong. So if you're a Genji player, you know that with your deflect, you can cancel it by wall climbing or you can cancel it by dashing. In this example, I'm going to cancel it by wall climbing, but just think like if you dash out of deflect, it does the exact same thing. So I'm going to deflect and I'm going to wall climb. And now I have stored the charge. What this allows me to do is to press Q and it will use the one single slice before my ultimate. Now, if you have your ultimate, you won't be able to pull Blade until you have exhausted this charge. So be very, very smart about when you're trying to use this. If you have your ult and you want to go into a fight and pull Blade, but you've accidentally stored a Q, you'll pop it like this, and then you'll be stuck like this, and you'll have to pull out Blade again after. So it's very important to manage it properly and to use the tech properly as well. But this Iaido strike gives you really, really good burst damage, as you can see. You can also cancel the like resheathing of the Dragon Blade with a dash, which is incredibly, incredibly strong. You know, you can cancel it with wall climb. If you play Genji, you know about this stuff already. This is stuff that has been in the game pretty much since it came out, but you can just use it now more fluidly with your kit and use it for a lot of extra burst damage. So that's why I think that Iaido strike is the next best thing to take. And now at this point in the game, right, like we're at the point where it's like 34,000, like what are we getting next? An important note that I'm going to make here before I get into the rest of the build and your options for your fourth ability is Siphon Gloves at this point in the game. As you can see, I have 375 HP, and that is including my overhealth, but Siphon Gloves is kind of getting to the point where it becomes obsolete. So an option at any point that you feel comfortable with, this is something that I'm still experimenting with, but especially when you're behind, Gloom Gauntlet is a direct upgrade. You can go ahead and read it. Gloom Gauntlet is very, very good. But I always, before I get Gloom Gauntlet, will every single time get Transference Delta. I'm going to break this down for you guys. Blade is 15% cheaper. That's pretty humongous. You have 100 armor instead of 100 HP, and using Dragon Blade will fully restore this armor. Now, fine text here, right? Like fine line, fine text stuff. Like this is really getting into the nitty gritty of how this build works. You're going to buy Gloom Gauntlet too. This does not say heals you 100 armor. It heals your armor fully. So these two things together is going to give you 150 armor, and with each other, like if you take damage, it's going to take an absolute year for these bots to do enough damage to me, but I'll break this down for you guys because I want to show you guys how good this is. Alright, so I have Dragon Blade. I'm going to let this bot do a lot of damage to me to demonstrate here how broken this is. And now I've gotten to the point where I have no armor left. I'm simply just going to press Q. All that armor is back. And I'm bleeding. And I'm life-stealing. It's insane. It's absolutely insane for Genji's survivability to get these two items. Very, very good. Now, you might be looking at the build, and you might be thinking, right? Like, I have 3 survival items on Genji. That can't be right. Really, really think about this. 15 extra melee damage, you get your blade more often, and you have weapon power and your life-stealing. You're getting a lot of weapon power from Eye of the Spider and Codebreaker put together. Combined, those are giving you 40 weapon power. That's really, really good. So the last thing you buy, I'm going to put asterisks around this. I'm going to put this in quotes. This is what I do. There might be a better option. This is the point where the build in the early game and the mid game is so good. I rarely get to the point where I have to buy my 6th epic item. But when I do get to buy that 6th epic item, I usually get Enduring Edge. That's going to give you 4 extra seconds on your Dragon Blade, which is already very strong because of Transference Delta and all of your lifesteal and melee lifesteal, and also 10 extra weapon power as a bonus. So this gets you up to 60 weapon power. Now it is possible to buy something like the Closer and get up to 70% weapon power. Ambusher Optics is something I haven't really experimented with, but in theory it'd be really, really good with this build. I don't really care for Swift Loader. It's pretty much between the Closer, Enduring Edge. There are other options in here, like here's some cooldown reduction and some weapon power. You get some stacking weapon power. This is something that should definitely be experimented with, something that I haven't got a lot of experience with, but in my head, whenever I really think about it and break it down, I think Enduring Edge is going to be your best option every single time. Of course, like I said, that's in quotes. There are asterisks around that statement. Experiment if you get to this point, because I would like to know. Leave a comment if you get to this point. What worked best for you? Please let me know. But this build is too good to even have a game go on this long, right? You're going to be winning the game before this point almost every single time. And now, I mean, to wrap up the video, I'm just going to talk about this round 7 option, right? What are you buying at this last slot? There's only a few choices, honestly. I think there's 3. I think it's between Cybernetic Speed to throw more shurikens, Forge Under Fire to be even more survivable, or Dragon's Breath for a lot of utility, actually. Compared with Iaido Strike and just Dragon Blade being Dragon Blade, Dragon's Breath is very good. You can kind of just store a projectile that you can shoot out whenever you want. It does pretty good damage. If someone's running away from you, you can use that to, have to avoid chasing them down. It's very cool. I think Dragon's Breath is is pretty solid. Like, that's a good tool to have. And also, like, when you're blading, you're just going to be able to, you know, spew out all these projectiles that are going to be doing an insane amount of damage. Pretty good in my opinion. Very solid. But you do have other options. Cybernetic Speed gives you that stacking attack speed, and Forged Under Fire gives you a lot more survivability. So yeah, that's pretty much my guide to Stadium's Genji build. There's other situational things that I could talk about, like every single nitty-gritty decision that you could make, but if you're the kind of person that just wants kind of a simple guide to follow, if you're not someone that's super well versed with games that have item builds like this and the situational importance of buying things like anti-beam coating, buying other things, maybe getting more bulk, cooldown reduction, this is a simple guide you can follow. Obviously, I would read everything here. I, at this point, have unfortunately had enough time to go through and read every single one of these items. I think for Genji, this is probably the best build that you can possibly get. I think it's fundamentally very broken. Genji can abuse the increase in melee damage and the survivability given from this melee damage very, very well. I think Genji abuses this ability specifically so, so well. Brilliant design from the Blizzard team. I think it's broken. I think it's fun. It might get patched, honestly. This build, like, if it takes off, like, I could see it getting patched. Like I said, I have a 94% win rate. I've lost one game, and every single one of my games, I've been the highest performing player in the entire lobby. My team and their team, doesn't matter. Always been on top. So go ahead, try this out, let me know what you think, and if you enjoyed this information and you appreciate this information that I'm graciously sharing with the entire community, I could gatekeep this, I could keep it under wraps. This is a broken build. If you appreciate the information that you're getting, you know, subscribe, like the video, comment, all that shit. You've heard it a billion times, you know. Just go ahead and try this out. It's very, very fun. Have a good one.